I'm trying to figure out why. There we go. Hi, everyone. It's Mr. Van over here. Hope you enjoyed our little interlude of the Führer's face so that you got some Donald Duck in. And happy December holidays to all, one and all, for our very, very late in the school year. Winter break is upon us, but we have to take our period 7 APUSH exam. So remember, that's roughly 1898 to 1945. Lots of stuff, lots of territory to cover there. And I know that can seem overwhelming, but just like any other point, at this point in a unit, you want to make sure that you are reviewing information. That's where your unit guide comes in handy. That's where your chapter outlines on the wiki notes might help out, because you don't want to have any kind of trying to read the book at this point would just be completely overwhelming and would make it something that would be counterproductive. At the moment, I'm not monitoring your chat, so give me just a moment. But what I want to make sure we do is we take a look at a couple of things that are part of your study resources that are available to you. So, for example, if you do make sure that you go over to my particular website, so hold on for a minute. You're going to get some cosmic blah, 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 blah in a second when I share this screen. But if you go to my website, there you go. Woo, it's the future. So if you go to my website and you're looking at the helpful study links, remember, if you go to APUSH Period 7, I sent this out earlier today. You go to APUSH Period 7 and you get the recommended study techniques that I have. So of course, when we're done tonight, what I recommend you do is, at the very least, you want to maybe look through these period reviews videos to make sure that you get a reminder of all of the things that really apply to this time period. I would recommend Mr. Jose and his review here. It's 20 minutes, but it has a little more detailed information than you get from either Gilder Lehrman or from what you get from Mr. Norris's site. The other thing that I recommend you do is that you use the History Heart Lady quizzes, because these are the ones that apply to the time period that we have studied. This is intended, remember, to help you target what you need to review. In other words, if you just blindly try to go into this and review, you're going to get overwhelmed. And that's just kind of how that works. So what you're going to want to do is take these quizzes, and any information that you don't necessarily get right away, you want to make sure you jot down the topic matter, then go over to, for example, maybe a little more in-depth key concept reviews. So these 3 videos review each of the 3 main areas of study that were in this particular unit. Then, if you really want to go any further, if you don't get any information from these quizzes correct, what you may want to do is choose your topics. So if you go to step 4 of this, I have tried to put together a large compilation of videos that explain various laws, various concepts from each of the things that we've looked at, various different sources here that may help you out in reminding you about things that are important. Then if you go here we've got some slide decks here these were slides that I either put online for you already or that we used in class. So one of those might help remind you of some things as well. Very, very important that I think you at least watch the APUSH Period 7 reviews, period reviews. And at the very least, you look at the key concept videos. That would be a good way to just refamiliarize yourself with everything that was learned. If you really, really want to try to get into unit guides, and this is very important, so I want you all to listen very carefully. I've had a few of you write me this evening and asked about bolded terms. And I'm just going to point out to you what this says right here. Bolded terms are meant for quizzes only. And I made you a special document for your last quiz, but bolded terms are for quizzes only. Any other term on this unit guide is subject to being tested, not only for the unit test, but also for your AP exam in May. What's sometimes a bit distressing for me is when I have people ask me the day before the test, what chapters are there on this test? This document has been here since forever and shows you that there are several chapters that were in this unit that we've been covering since we returned from Thanksgiving. So when you look here, remember that the bolded terms are not necessarily the only terms you need to know. They are just what we looked at a little closer when we did our our weekly quizzes. But for example, you should know about the Root-Takahira Agreement, and you should know about the Russo-Japanese War. And even though we didn't necessarily spend tons of time in class on some of these things, they are important things that are possibly going to show on your test. You should know the Teller Amendment. You should know who Thorstein Veblen is, and if you don't know who Eugene V. Debs is right now, I'm going to throw things through the screen at you because you should definitely know. These Conservation Act, like the Desert Land Acts or the New Lands Act, you know that they're not bolded here because I didn't specifically target them for a quiz question perhaps, but you should understand that they are going to possibly be on your test. So if you've not done any studying prior to tonight, scary. And yes, it should be scary at this point. But what you should not do is try to go to your book at this point and try to look everything up from that unit guide. What I would suggest you do is go back to helpful study links, just your main general study links. And if you absolutely have not done much studying and there are terms on there that you haven't paid any attention to, please make sure that you have the chapter outlines from WikiNotes that can help you out. Again, I've shown you these before, but I'll make it just a quick little reminder for you that when you're looking here, like I just said, you should know who Thorstein Veblen is. Well, Veblen, I always say Veblen, I always say his name wrong. But he wrote The Theory of the Leisure Class, and he talked about the idea of conspicuous consumption, which he writes this in 1899. We're going to see a big rise of conspicuous consumption later on, say in the 1920s, and people who were making money just for money's sake. So these are people who are part of the progressive era. Some of these are your muckrakers. And if you notice that many of the names and the words that are on my unit guide are also here and highlighted, which is why I generally suggest you take a look at these. So that's what I would recommend you do if you're completely just unsure of any of those terms, which then again, like I said, I'm kind of scared because that should not be the case for you. That being said, let's get back away from the Twilight Zone and let's make sure that you understand a couple things. So right now I'm Santa Vanover, but Santa Vanover is not bringing presents because there are no gifts in APUSH. It's a harsh, harsh reality, my friends. So please understand that we're going to go through some Kahoot, and you can join me for Kahoot for some general review. I'll look at some stimulus questions, and then I'll give you some hints about your writing that will be perhaps present tomorrow. So the one thing I will tell you I will be doing tomorrow is I will be doing a brief lesson on Japanese American internment prior to starting the test. That is because I didn't really get to do much on that in class, given my having to be absent yesterday. And I don't feel right not doing that. And so there's a few things I'll highlight to you in there, particularly the Korematsu decision, which relates to Executive Order 9066. So that being said, let's get ourselves over to the Kahoot. And you may follow along or you may join us. But we will be looking at a Kahoot that I think is a pretty nice, pretty nice little Kahoot for APUSH purposes. So the person I stole this from did a really good job of putting together a good Kahoot here. So hooray them. So let's get this together and take a look at our Kahoot here. So here we go. We're going to play our Kahoot here. We got 24 questions. I'll try to get through as much of it as possible. Again, I'm not looking at the window at just a sec at this moment, so give me a moment. I'll get to the window. If you've asked me any questions on the chat window that I have not seen at this point, please hold your questions and then we'll get to them later. Once we start the Kahoot, don't ask questions about the test for tomorrow. Just keep ourselves on task for the Kahoot, and then I'll give you an opportunity to ask some questions for the test tomorrow. Deal? Deal. Okay, so here we go. We're going to play our Kahoot, and let's see. We'll do an answer streak bonus for you guys. I am going to do a name generator this time because we're online, and just because some of you guys tend to push the envelope a little bit. And we'll have the pin displayed and we'll go through this. So let's play Kahoot. Your game pin will be coming up here shortly. $875-1908. boys and girls, we're going to get this game on the road. So if you want to join us, now is the time. I'm glad that Tal is probably dabbing to this music, which is so fire. I'm loving these names. Amazing Octopus, Brave Shark, Creative Lion, Brave Bat. So, now's your time. Wonder Dragon, Amazing Panda. Okay, here we go. The position taken by the author most supports which about TR's approach to conservation? So, only got 12 answers, 70 seconds left. Call for individual state policies for resource management, relax federal restrictions on natural resource development, balance resource conservation with habitat preservation, or allow companies to address environmental concerns. Under a minute left. Okay, 11 of you got that correct. I'm liking that. Let's take a look at that media again, where it says the legitimate demands on the forests that have passed into private ownership, as well as those in the hands of the government, are increasing every year with the rapid settlement and upbuilding of the country. But the methods of lumbering are as yet grossly wasteful. In most mills, only the best portions of the best trees are used, while the ruins are left on the ground to feed great fires, which kill much of what is left of the less desirable timber, together with the seedlings on which the permanence of the forest depends. In their natural condition or under wise management, keeping out destructive sheep, preventing fires, selecting the trees that should be cut for lumber, and preserving the young ones and the shrubs and sod of herbaceous vegetation, these forests would be a never-failing fountain of wealth and beauty. So when you're looking at this particular blurb, first of all, remember there's a method that you can use, which is scan your question, scan your answer choices, and then look at your source of your source information for the excerpt, for the stimulus. In this case, it's John Muir. So what do you know about John Muir? I'm asking the group to respond in the chat. What do we know about John Muir? Jessica says conservation, Yosemite. Ryan Song says he is a conservationist, and Sean says yeah. So if you look at that, he was in an environmentalist group, Drew says. Jake says conservation dude. Sean says he hiked. Alexis says Sierra Club. Nice, Lexi. Sorry, I didn't mean to give you your unpreferred name. Sierra Nevada group. We've got the Sierra Club founder. He's an advocate for environmental preservation. And Alex then just corrected himself to say Nevada. So good on that one, Alex. So look at this from this standpoint. So here's what I'm going to give you kind of a general thing to kind of think about. if you know that John Muir is writing about American forests, and you know that a certain president who believed that conservation wasn't a bad idea happened, and you know it's 1901, we know that Theodore Roosevelt definitely agreed with John Muir, and this is the progressive era. So if you take a look at it, you have that information with not even necessarily reading what the excerpt said. So if you look at this and you think about the fact that this is the progressive era, and the progressives generally called for more government intervention in various affairs of life, look at what you have here. And call for individual state policies for resource management. That one could be a logical incorrect answer if you didn't know any better. You guys correctly did not choose the incorrect option of relaxing federal restrictions, because that would not be anything progressive. It might be later, but not during the progressive era, not in 1901. You also then, if you look here, a few of you chose this, and if you look at this, it says allow companies to address environmental concerns. Well, Theodore Roosevelt, we know, believed that not all companies were bad, but that you couldn't just leave companies on their own. Conservation and business don't always go hand in hand, because businesses want to use resources and they want to use them quite readily to make sure that they have as much of a profit as possible. So you chose balanced resource conservation with habitat preservation, which would be hitting at what some of that message was. So if I was looking at this from what would I expect students to logically answer, it would be one of these two. However, the excerpt is going to tell you that this is going to be your answer choice. So not bad on that, boys and girls, not bad at all. Let's go and see how we did on this one. So we have Magic Cat. Magic Cat is at number 1 here. Of course, we don't know who any of you people are this time. So this is interesting. You can't just make any assumptions. We got Stellar Wolf, Power Dog, Wonder Dragon, and Amazing Panda. And look at this, Wonder Dragon and Amazing Panda, you are running neck and neck here at a tie. So let's go to our next question. A Protestant Christian movement that emphasized a literal interpretation of the Bible. Is it modernism, Bible theory, traditionalism, or fundamentalism? We're waiting on somebody to make their answer choice here. David's son, Evan just totally roasted you, dude. Nice. I'm glad a few of you made sure that you did this. So fundamentalism is the Protestant Christian movement, and the big clue to you there should be a literal interpretation of the Bible. Traditionalism would be a logical wrong answer, but traditionalism does not necessarily involve simply matters of Christianity, but more about traditional culture in general. So this is a very Very good showing. I'm encouraged that you understand fundamentalism in that regard. Let's see how we did on this one. So we see Agent Owl has moved to the list, and Creative Lion, Power Dog, and Magic Cat. Aw, the Magic Kitty. And Stellar Wolf is holding in at number 1 there. But Magic Cat is going to, the kitty is going to bite the wolf very shortly here. So let's go on to our next question. John Hayes' proposal that all nations would have equal opportunities to trade with China. Nice. The proposal is called the open door policy. And this is an interesting opportunity because somebody chose spheres of influence. And don't be embarrassed, because the open door policy called for spheres of influence to be incorporated within the world's dealing with China. Of course, this was without asking the Chinese what they really wanted to have happen. However, the spheres of influence is not the name of the policy. It is not the official name of the proposal. John Hayes' proposal was referred to as the open door policy. So Millen says the room to his door is open. So I'm glad. Thanks for sharing on that one. If we go back and we take a look at this particular pixelated image, but if you read the caption, putting his foot down. So we got Uncle Sam here with something in his hand. We don't even have to see what's in his hand. He's standing on a map of China, as it says very subtly there, map of China. And he's got his sword there as well. So can we do a little image analysis here? Let's do some analysis here on this particular image. What are we seeing here? What is the significance of each of these individuals holding scissors? You can respond in the chat. By all means, please. Ryan says, cutting up China. Nice. Okay, who do the individuals represent? And Drew just said all of the other countries trying to represent China. Europe trying to divide China between themselves, Sean says. Jessica says, cut up their own portion of China for trade. So if we look here, can you tell perhaps who this person is? I'm circling them with the arrow right now. Great Britain, Jessica and Ryan says. That is correct. So again, I know the image is pixelated here, but if you look at his vest here, he's got the Union Jack or the United Kingdom flag here. So that shows you that's him. This person is likely to be, I would guess, Russia, perhaps, from the hat. You don't even have to even know the individual countries. Sometimes it's a lot more evident. This one is not quite as much, but you have the sense of knowing that these are European countries, and they are going to try to carve up the map of China, which is a key concept, you can say, a key central concept that that is a part of the open door policy. So if you're familiar with the open door policy, and even that it has something to do with China, hopefully looking at this political cartoon would help you understand that the point of view is to discuss, the subject matter here is about the open door. So nicely done, my friends, on that one. Let's see what we got going on. Stellar Wolf and Magic Cat are still in the top 2. And there's only a 10-point difference here. Creative Lion, Agent Owl. Ooh, I like that name too. And we know that 8 players just hit their 3rd answer streak as well. So you guys are doing a good job. Let's take a next look. This limited the number of immigrants that could enter the U.S. from each country. So this is the Immigration Act of 1924. Let me see. And I like how Sean Loki read the blue one as Execute Order 66. But let's take a look at the Chinese Exclusion Act first. I'm glad you guys didn't choose that, but let's just analyze this for a moment. Why cannot that be the answer? Hey, Evan, thanks for that nice little shout out about subscribing to my wonderful channel. Okay, so Jessica said, in order to answer to my question, why can't it be the Chinese Exclusion Act? You said because this applied to all countries, not just China. Ryan said that's like in the 1880s. And that is correct, Ryan. Just think of the year. The Chinese Exclusion Act is much earlier than the Immigration Act of 1924. Now, do you know what Executive Order 9066 is? No, Jake, they didn't kill any Japanese younglings. At least not on paper. So, Sean, you just violated the No Star Wars ban. Jake? Okay, so Jessica said, in answer to my question about Executive Order 9066, Jessica started off with Roosevelt, Pearl Harbor. Ryan says internment. Jessica says Roosevelt. Cameron says all interned. Drew says unlimited power. And LOL, Daniel says removal of people from military areas. That's even more specific, Daniel. Very good. And Jessica says Japanese internment. So we'll get more on that later. Glad you guys could make that distinction. Very happy to see this. Let's see what we're doing here. So Stellar Wolf answered this a lot faster than Magic Cat did, but there's still only a 19-point difference here. Power Dog at 3, Creative Lion in at 4, and Agent Owl, you are at number 5. Let's see. The ideas expressed characterize which of the following periods in U.S. history? Read the quote. Yo, dudes, just choose an answer. It's okay. Boom. Now, sorry, I'm kind of eating. But you, if you got that wrong, don't fret because this is just Kahoot. You're winning or losing really doesn't matter, and no one knows who you are. And also, oh gosh, Jessica, and Cameron, you just said yell. You got it right. So that's what happens sometimes when you look at the media. The reason why I said don't fret on this particular one is because you may remember that when we talked about when we were doing the progressive era, I told you that we would be covering W.E.B. Du Bois at a later time because I kind of do all of that topically when we talk about the civil rights movement. So don't worry about this. This will not be on your test tomorrow, even though it technically belongs in period 7. Let's take a look at how we did here. Power Dog, you are at number 1. David Sun has said he's first. Stellar Wolf, you've come down to number 2 here. Agent Owl is at number 3. The Lion one, whatever that one was, that one fell off. Creative Dragon, you're at 4. And Brave Shark is at number 5. All right. Let's take a look at the next one. Ready to go? Yes. All of the following were causes for American involvement in World War I, except nicely done. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, please keep in mind, is a reason for the outbreak of war, is a reason of the outbreak of war in Europe, but not for the Americans' involvement in World War I. Let's see how we did. Stellar Wolf, Power Dog, still fighting it out there. Agent Owl at number 3. Creative Dragon is at number 4. And Brave Shark is at number 5. All right, boys and girls, let's go to our next question. What are you going to infer from this particular photograph? Nicely done, boys and girls. Now, I don't know why somebody chose the blue diamond, but I'm going to ask you real quick, looking at that picture, if you didn't see the caption or the source information, that says World War I women in an armament factory, what would give you a clue that this is at least sometime around World War I? Jessica, you chose that blue one. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I asked, how could you conclude that this has to do with World War I? And I'm getting some answers here, which are interesting. Jessica says women in the factory. Ryan says, are units based on this time period? Okay, that's a good one. Jessica says, because all the men are fighting. But what clue in that photograph would give you the idea that this is from World War I and say not World War II? Eliana, you just said it. I think you meant to say conservative women, but you said conservative women dressed in long clothes and their hair is tied back. So, yes, if you look here, you see long dresses here. Drew, be careful with your Franz Ferdinand in the background. But if you look here, you have long dresses, which you would never see these in factories today because really, to be honest with you, these are health and safety hazards because long dresses can get caught in machinery. But first of all, a couple things to look for. If you had to look at this and it did not have the clue at the top. So if you look here, you have a factory with heavy machinery, but you don't see any men working. And so remember the context of the time. So if you're thinking of your contextualization skills, you don't see men in a factory. You see heavy machinery. It's clearly an old photograph, so you more likely see men in a factory than women at any other time. So you're going to conclude this is probably one of the wars. And if you had to know which war it was, you see that you can tell from their period style clothing that they are not World War II, but World War I. Ryan says, oh, wait, yeah, since women after the 1920s are like flappers. Well, you're more likely to find women in less conservative clothing. Maybe not quite as flappers. It'd be funny to see women in beaded dresses, sure, and flapping arm fringes in a factory like that. But yeah, no, it's not going to be. It's going to be before you hit the 1920s. So that's not a bad idea to keep in mind there, Ryan. So we know that we don't see women demonstrating an inability to handle heavy equipment in that photo because they're handling heavy equipment. We know that women don't lack the skills required to work in munition plants because they look like they're working in a munition plant. Plus, you saw armament factory, which means they're making arms, and women show that they were unworthy of earning equal pay is evidently what Jessica thinks she sees in that one. So I'm just disappointed in you as a young woman, Jessica. I don't care if you say you clicked wrong. I think you have very poor beliefs. And I'm just kidding. But women gained employment in previously male-dominated jobs because, yes, as some of you pointed out in the chat, they've gone off to war. Nice. Power Dog, number 1. Agent Owl has risen to number 2. Brave Shark is back on the board at number 4. We get Happy Dolphin at number 5, and Creative Dragon, you're sitting there at number 3. So here we go. Executive Order 9066 led to all of the following except Jake Berman, I'm going to kick you out of this if you keep bringing up Jedi. Ooh, interesting. So first of all, this is a perfect example of what you need to do. If you're one of the 13 people that got this incorrect, you're going to want to make sure that you go look up Executive Order 9066 when the study session is done and make sure that you understand it, because this is kind of a tricky one. But if you pay attention and you've been watching, you would know, you've been looking in your book and you would been seeing anything. In 1988, the U.S. Congress passed a resolution to issue reparations or payments to those persons still living who had been put into camps. And you're right, it's not a decade later, Ryan. You said it's like 50 years later, about 40 something years later, but yes. But we know that Japanese American citizens of Japanese ancestry were put into the internment camps. The Supreme Court ruling that internment camps were necessary in a crisis is part of the Supreme Court ruling in Korematsu versus the United States. And there is consideration that the Fifth Amendment has some provision that was not necessarily honored by the Supreme Court in that particular case. So the reparations is the incorrect answer here, because they were put into they were given the reparations later in the 1980s. Whoever Logan is says, what's the Fifth Amendment about? David says that's something that outlawed trial without jury. Cameron says like a fair trial and stuff. And yep, you guys are right. So perhaps they're saying they've been imprisoned without having a trial or being convicted. And that's why they went to the Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court said no, that it's an emergency. Miranda rights come a little differently, Jessica. We'll actually talk about Miranda rights. And Sean pleads the Fifth because he doesn't want to have any kind of self-incrimination. So let's see here. Power Dog, you're still riding the top at number 1. Brave Shark, you've now climbed to number 2, mounting a formidable challenge. Agent Owl has moved into the number 3 spot. Someone who is Majestic Fox, you were at number 4. And Creative Dragon, you've now moved down to number 5. But Bold Panda is the highest climber. Oh no, let's see what our next question is. This movement is depicting interpretation. right, the social gospel movement is what you see here. Can you tell me why in the chat? I'd love to see why. Can you tell me why? Why, oh, why is this the social gospel? How can you tell? So, Florence Kelly, y'all. Ooh, interesting. But I see Annie Kelly, but okay. Oh, I see. Jessica says ignore that. It had something to do with the gospel, but obviously isn't the gospel of wealth. Let's see here. So all of these children need temperance, house of prayer. So religion is then gospel. The poor children, house of prayer equals religion. And Gavin said process of elimination. So if we take a look here, social gospel movement, it's not gospel of wealth, obviously, because they're probably not wealthy, but the social gospel said that you provide assistance and you provide some sort of help to all people, and of course, in this case, the little children. So it applied Christian ethics to social problems, Amy said. Nicely stated, Amy. I like that. And Jessica correctly pointed out that the gospel of wealth would be something more like Carnegie and philanthropy, which is nice. Ryan says, since it's not temperance, since no alcohol, not social Darwinism, since no lower people, and it can't be the gospel of wealth. So when Amy said social gospel applied Christian ethics to social problems, Cameron says, yeah. And Drew says, you can't see it in the picture, but all the children are drunk, so temperance. Oh, Drew, you think that's funny. Hey, Gavin, don't knock Amy. If she did a Google search, it's because she's being resourceful, and I bet she's going to remember it now. So, boo. All right, let's take a look. Power Dog number 1, Brave Shark is at number 2. We now have somebody named Magic Cheetah at number 3. Cheetahs are magic. Creative Dragon, you've come back on the board, and Agent Owl as well. Nice. All right, let's take a look. The involvement of the U.S. in the Caribbean and Latin America based on economic interest is... This would be dollar diplomacy. I'm looking here and I'm reading your comments, which is nice. Millen says $1. And then Sean has now given me something that makes me feel old because I'm reading this on a small screen on my phone, but it looks like it says that Taft is TICC, which I don't even know what that means. And then I see Sean says, thanks, Yannick. Bathtub diplomacy. High key Googled this term before the stream because of history. Heart Lady quizzes. Nice, Jessica. That is perfect. I'm glad you did that. And Drew says he's back. And Cameron says rip timing. Sorry, Cam. But let's take a look here. We've got dollar diplomacy. And yes, that is absolutely the best political cartoon ever. And I think it's interesting. I wonder what these are. It's a little too pixelated for me to see. So if any of you find this out there, I'd be really interested to see what those things reaching out of the bathtub appear to be. I think maybe the legs of the bathtub, what it would rest on. But that's definitely a perfect little thing there. Although it doesn't really give us a huge clue about Latin America and the Caribbean and dollar diplomacy. But high key, Jessica, you said you went and you looked at this, that you went and looked this up on Google. And that's perfect. That's a really good thing to do if you're not familiar with the term dollar diplomacy. But you should associate it with William Howard Taft. Nicely done. Okay, Power Dog number 1, Brave Shark still holding at number 2, Agent Owl at number 3, Magic Cat seems to have appeared on the board again, and we know that Magic Cheetah is now back down at number 4, and 2 members of the cat family are apparently magic. So Witty Shark, you are the highest climber. You are going to maybe end up back on this board and making a real nice play here. Let's take a look. Which of the following developments led to the cartoonist to depict these events? Some of you are saying your resolution is bad. We'll get a few minutes here. Drew says you got it wrong. So if you look here, when I bring it up, it's going to be pixelated probably even more. But if you look here, it says through Professor Marconi's wireless telegraphy, which, speaking from experience, the American Indian is saying to the Filipino, if you see here on the sign, it says Philippines. Here it says in red, United States. And it says here, be good or you will be dead. And so Marconi, you probably know, is the inventor of the radio. So this is talking about using radio signals here. And the American Indian is saying, be good or you'll be dead, because the American Indian knows what the American government will do. And of course, you see a pile of people here, apparently dead, because generally people don't pile up and fall asleep on each other. And this person has his feet sticking out of the ocean. So probably not going to be a swimmer. So if you take a look back at this would talk about the Filipinos revolting against American intervention after the Spanish-American War. Remember that they thought that they would be able to have their independence after Spain was defeated by the United States, but the United States had other ideas, and for all of the atrocities the Spanish were accused of committing against the people that they had been colonized in their islands, the United States did a pretty harsh put down of this particular rebellion. Of course, we know that that was a source of concern for anti-imperialists, including members of the American Anti-Imperialist League. So Let's take a look at your scores, my friends. Power Dog still at number 1. Brave Shark number 2. Magic Cat is number 3 with the cheetah falling down. And Agent Owl, you're still at number 4. All right. Let's see what we can do now. The U.S. planned to help Germany pay World War I reparations. $55 billion. Okay, so 10 of you correctly identified the Dawes plan. And I like that. Let's see here. Some of you were saying Coolidge, some of you said Versailles, which would not be right because Versailles was what charged the reparations. Some of you were saying, oh, Millen is too good to play in the Kahoot, but he's going to talk up trash in the chat. Jessica says that I should give everybody who misses this question an automatic L on their test. So don't know what the Dawes plan is? Look it up. Do not be confused with the Dawes Act. The Dawes Act has to do with Native Americans and Indian reservations that are set up by the U.S. government in the 1880s after Native Americans have been continuously moved westward. But people sometimes could get that confused, and I could see the College Board maybe trying to scare you or throw you off in some way on that. So just making that kind of clear to y'all. It's important to make sure that you don't lose that. So let's take a look here. How do we do, my friends? We got Power Dog number 1, Brave Shark holding at number 2, Magic Cat is at number 3. Notice that the cheetah has fallen off the top 5. Majestic Foxy, you are at number 4. In Agent Owl, you're at number 5. Let's go to the next question. Which of the following accurately expresses the ideas about the economy in the early 1930s? Ooh, Millen the goat got it wrong. So in the chat, I noticed that some of you noticed that it was kind of hard to see the image. So if you look here, now keep in mind, I freely admit I copied this from somebody else who made it, so please forgive the image quality. But if you take a look at the image here, we got this little post here that says hire, fire, save. I can't read that one here. It says be cautious, spend, or be reckless, and just around the corner. So if you're taking a look at this, let's see here. Take an L, my boy. I don't know, but Hoover did say red. Yeah, but picture. And Davidson said, oh, and then Millen says, yes, the picture gives it away. So, so sorry that you couldn't see the picture. See the picture well to answer the question. So it affected your non-important score for your non-existent prize. I'm sorry. But if you take a look here, contradictory advice on how to fix the depression is what's seen here. Now, Millen is correct. Hoover did say the economy is going to recover. This isn't going to take very long. And remember what, at least in one of your classes, I made it a point to say that one of the things where I feel like Hoover just got a really bad deal is that if you look at the American economy historically through the time of the 1920s, there had been periodic crashes or panics, as they got called all the time, where there had been downturns in the economy. They lasted a few years and there was an eventual rebound. So this didn't necessarily, in his experience, appear to be anything different. He had every indication that this would be different. However, it was so much more severe. They didn't realize it at the time. And we can see that obviously he was wrong. But you have the image that tells you that there's so much different advice as to what to do to get back to some sort of prosperity that people just didn't really know where to go. So we know the government didn't react quickly to the Great Depression, and we know that there wasn't opposition for the government to provide immediate relief. And in fact, the American people generally thought that that should happen. It was government leaders, particularly conservative leaders, more along the lines of Herbert Hoover, that thought that that would be counterproductive for the government to provide direct relief to the people. So let's take a look at how we did on this one. Power Dog, you have moved into number 1 still. Brave Shark's at number 2. Magic Cat is at number 3. Majestic Fox, you have the answer streaker number 4. And Agent Owl, you are at number 5. Let's see. This excerpt most directly reflects commentary on conditions prevalent in So this one is interesting because you felt like it was a sketchy question, I see. Cameron says he is sad because he lost his streak. And David says double X, one more and he's out. Drew says, what's the code? He got booted. Drew, the code is 875-1908. Let's take a look here and see. So it says here, let's look at the media. State of the Union speech. We know the president has to give the State of the Union speech at least annually. Generally tends to be today in this day and age in January. But he gave his on December 8th of 1908. And it said resistance to every effort for the reform of abuses and for the readjustment of society to modern industrial conditions represents not true conservatism, but an incitement to the wildest radicalism. I believe in steady efforts to bring about a condition of affairs under which those who work with hand or with brain, the laborers, the superintendents, shall own a greater share than at present of the wealth they produce. Corporate finances must be supervised so as to make it far safer than at present for the person of small means to invest. There must be a prohibition of child labor, diminution of woman labor, and a shortening of hours of all mechanical labor. There should be a progressive inheritance tax on large fortunes. Industrial education should be encouraged. And as far as possible, we should lighten the burden of taxation on the average citizen. We should put a premium upon thrift, hard work, and business energy. So going back to that, we've got Theodore Roosevelt. It's 1908. He's the president. He's given State of the Union speech. So he's giving what he is giving is what he believes should be Congress's focus and that Congress should uphold in their legislative session. And so when you take a look here, we have corrupt political systems is what is shown as the answer, but some would say capitalist ventures. So when you go to the idea of you thinking that this is a sketchy question, I'll give you that a little bit, but here's what I'm going to tell you is the big clue to why he may be speaking about corruption in government, because this line here. So resistance to the effort of the reform of abuses and for the readjustment of society is not conservative, but is actually something along the lines of the wildest radicalism. So if you take a look there, what he's saying here is that you people, all of you people here who are resisting in this Congress, you're not truly conservative. You're trying to resist a readjustment to modern conditions. So in other words, adjusting to the changes that have happened in society. And you're trying to incite the wildest radicalism to keep it the same. So that gives you an idea of why the answer could be corrupt political systems. However, it's a poorly written question given the excerpt. And so what I would say is that it's very logical that you chose capitalist ventures. But alas, I didn't make this so, and I didn't edit it. So if you got it wrong, rip. But Power Dog, you're number 1. Brave Shark, number 2. Magic Cat, meow, you're at number 3. The Majestic Fox, whatever noise those make, is at number 4. And then Agent Owl, hoo-hoo, you're at number 5. All right, let's see the next question. Which of the following represents a change advocated by the political cartoonist? What you have is Jay Gould's private bowling alley. And if you look at the sign, it says Western Union, $23 million. Missouri Pacific, $12 million. We've got Manhattan L, meaning elevated. Wabash, New York, I can't read the other one. I don't have my glasses on. Jay Gould is standing on Wall Street. The bowling pins say speculator, 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 speculator. They have little heads on the top. Bowling ball, one of the balls says false reports. This one says trickery. Require a federal monitoring of business practices. So what you have here is Jay Gould, Bankers and Brokers is the little house here. He's standing on Wall Street. He's got something here that I can't read on this ball. General something I can't read on that ball. We got false reports, banker, stock dabbler, speculator. I can't read this one. We got capitalist here. We got broker here, speculator, an operator, another speculator. We got a ball of trickery and a ball of false reports. So if you're looking at this, Wall Street, Jay Gould, you get this idea of monitoring of business practices. Who is Jay Gould? David says he thinks the ball says private press. And you know what? Now that you say it, David, I totally see it. You're right. So if we're looking here, who's Jay Gould? The railroad guy, right? Ryan asks. I don't know, Ryan, is it? Jessica says he was a railroad developer and speculator. All right. Ryan says the sketchy dude. Jessica says a robber baron. Cameron said the same thing. Freaky. Millen says he must be a professional bowler. Eliana says it's her best friend. Ryan says we saw him in one of our document analysis. Yes, you did, my friend. Yes, you did. So keep in mind, if you're going to see anything dealing with private press, knocking down things, if you're going to see anything with a ball that says trickery or false reports on Wall Street and this idea that we're bowling down on Wall Street, you're going to probably see that a political cartoonist is going to be saying that Jay Gould here is bowling over all the people that would count on false reports and trickery to be led into things they shouldn't be involved in. So you could say that generally it would be accurate to say that this person probably thinks business practices should be enabled, should be monitored. Whereas if you look at this one, blue, enable corporations to conduct their own affairs, just keep in mind, period 7, most of the beginning of period 7, when you're going to have somebody like a Jay Gould running around, is going to be more about advocating for more federal control, and corporations conducting their own affairs seems to have run amok and caused problems. I don't see anything that does anything to do with raising import duties or expanding domestic markets through laissez-faire. All right, let's take a look here how we do. Power Dog, Brave Shark still holding the top 2 spots. Majestic Fox has moved to number 3. Magic Cat, number 4. And Agent Owl at number 5. Hooty hoot. All right, let's take a look here. The ideas expressed by the author in the next excerpt were a direct argument to those who there are only 4 of you playing this game, I'm going to stop. Supported the military draft. So let's look here in a second. The Army person is singing last, a perfect soldier. This one is a little hard. I think this one's sketch personally. I'm not really sure that I get the symbolism of maybe supporting the military draft. Although if you have a explanation to offer me, I'm happy to entertain it, but I'm not really sure I get it myself. Let's put it this way, if I was constructing your test, I would not put this on it. So it's the amputation and the whole damaged soldiers coming home. But if we're talking about arguing against the people who support the military draft, Jessica, the one thing that I would say is that I wouldn't say there's people damaged coming home just yet. They don't want people who can think with their heads. That's the only thing that I could think of as I looked at the image, Drew, is that if you supported the military draft, the only people who would support it would be people who had their heads cut off. I'm not sure if that's what that is. I'm not sure if that's what it means, but I think that's a good guess. Millen, I'm not just going to hit you up with the hints. You have to learn. If you want hints, you got to stick around, dude. Stick around. So let's take a look. Ooh, we still have no change in the top 5. Let's go on to our next question quickly. The evidence in the cartoon that you're going to see reflects which of the following concepts? We already saw this. So you should be able to do this one just fine. Jessica, I will check out that image. Thank you for that suggestion. If I don't get more than 5 answers in about 20 seconds, I'm going to skip this one. Skip. So the evidence suggests the concept the cartoonist supports would be self-determination, but my friends, can you explain why? Why does this show the support of self-determination? I know there's only 5 playing, but there's 30 of you watching it right now. So, yeah, I don't know. So self-determination, you got to figure that one out. Let's go to the next question. law passed to impose penalties on railroads that offered rebates and customers that accepted. The Mann-Elkins Act. Whose man's is this? Oh my goodness. All right, nicely done. Same people. Which of the following developments by 1912 most closely parallels the trend in the visual? Conservative and liberal Republicans disagreed over domestic policy. So, conservative, Democrat, conservative Republican, liberal Republicans, or the bull moose. Notice Teddy Roosevelt's trademark glasses there. And we get the Democrats who win because there was a split in the party. This is a donkey, Ryan. This is not a donkey. That's a bull moose. This is an elephant. It looks kind of like Horton Hears a Who, but with strange, like, scary bat ears. And Daniel pointed out, this is in the textbook. So, here we go. Which idea is expressed or referring to which policy in World War II? In the present world situation, it is important from a selfish viewpoint of American defense that we should do everything to help the British Empire defend itself. Suppose the home of the president's neighbor catches fire and needs a length of hose, 400 or 500 feet. If he can take the hose and connect it to the neighbor's hydrant, he may be able to put out the fire. He does not say his hose costs $15. Pay me $15. He doesn't want $15. He wants his hose back when the fire is over. The neighbor gives back the hose and then pays him for the use of it. If it gets smashed in the fire, the president says he was glad to lend it. The neighbor says he will replace the part if destroyed. The part destroyed. If the president got back his hose, he's done a pretty good job. Hey, David. If you're paying attention in class today, I brought that up. I told you about the fire hose situation that President Roosevelt brought up. Yes, David, I'm sure you meant for farming. Okay, so let's see. Power Dog. Oh, Power Dog, you've been streaking in a good way. And looks like we had some change on the board. Good for you people. Which of the following was most immediate cause of the event depicted in the visual? Whoa. I know that there are 4 of you playing and about 27 of you lurking right now. But yeah. So look at this again. Government reorganization, Supreme Court revision would be dictator. To what historical concept is this referring to? Easy peasy, Drew. What is it? Okay. Cameron says, the New Deal, yeah? Yeah, but you got to be more specific, Cameron. What's the question, Drew? Oh, I'm sorry. You'll have to rewind your video. Eliana says like the Agricultural Adjustment Act, maybe, she thinks. There's a big clue. This is FDR. He's walking with a cane. Government reorganization. Supreme Court revision would equal dictator. Isabella Caldarelli, first of all, I'm so happy to see you in the chat. You said the Supreme Court revision is when Roosevelt wanted to add extra judges for each one past 70, I think, each senior member. Yeah, now tell me what we call that. What do we call that idea that Supreme Court justices would be added to the court? And we'd increase the number past the number of 9. What is that called when Roosevelt proposes adding more Supreme Court justices. Unconstitutional? No, not necessarily. It's a scheme. Wait, Daniel Wong, you just said it. I am hearing angels singing in the background. The court packing scheme is correct. And that would mean that if he was successful in reorganizing the government along New Deal lines and revising the way the Supreme Court was running with more judges that would be in his favor. Remember, Supreme Court justices are appointed for life. They are also a extension of the president's particular philosophy. And one would argue the Congress, the Senate that confirms them, if they are of one party and they are confirmed, then the president and the Senate party in control, their philosophy would be reflected on the bench of the Supreme Court for a long period of time. So if you're looking here where the Supreme Court revision would come, by adding more Supreme Court justices, along with the government reorganization that was happening under the New Deal, FDR would be the equivalent to a dictator, because the court would no longer find things like the, I see somebody put Federal Housing Act here. Drew, you put the National Recovery Administration. That was definitely found unconstitutional. You'd find then that those would not have been declared unconstitutional if FDR had more judges that he was able to appoint to the Supreme Court. So the court packing scheme was an attempt by Franklin Roosevelt to put enough judges on with his philosophy that they would no longer declare his acts unconstitutional, and being an extreme reach of federal power, of presidential authority, and therefore many would believe he would be the equivalent of a dictator. He'd always get his way. Let's see, when did people kind of forget about this scandal when the wartime started? And Cameron says FDR's third term and later fourth was pretty controversial as well, was it not? So, Eliana, in a sense, FDR probably won his other elections beyond the traditional 2 terms more because with the third term, the New Deal was generally promising. Democrats were in favor because they were trying to do something. Now, we saw the graph in the Critics of the New Deal video that we watched the other day, where you could see that the New Deal programs weren't having as widespread effect as maybe we would have expected it to. But I think from the perspective of the people at the time, they just didn't see another way out. And the critics of the New Deal, the Republicans, generally believed that the government shouldn't be doing any of the relief efforts that they were involved in. The recovery efforts they thought were intrusive into the economic dealings of the country, and the reform efforts the same way. So I think if you're a voter, you're the average voter in America that's been affected by the Depression in some way, the Democrats and Roosevelt only offered the only option to you. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily that I'm right. I'm giving you my interpretation of things. But I think that the conservatives who believed that the government was overreaching with the New Deal programs, I think really misread what the economic crisis called for. And maybe that's a bit of my own personal philosophy put into that, but I don't see how any other plan would have worked at the time. Now, remember that Keynesian economics, which we talked about in class on Tuesday, remember that Keynesian economics was really a big factor of programs like Roosevelt's, where there would be deficit spending outside of what was being raised with borrowed money to make sure that you could try to get the economy going again. And that was the ultimate goal. Now, when you look at what Cameron says FDR's third and fourth term was pretty controversial. Yes, if you look at it, Cameron, obviously he broke the tradition of only serving 2 terms. Now, there was nothing constitutional at the time that said he could not serve 2 terms. It was just a tradition whose precedent was set by George Washington when he refused to go for another term. No one had ever dared go for a 3rd and later 4th term. He argued that changing leadership in the midst of such a financial crisis, and then later with a war looming over the world, he argued that it would be irresponsible to change leadership at that time, and obviously voters agreed. So that was definitely a controversial thing to have been elected for a 4th term. Had Roosevelt lived, he would have been president for 16 years. And then, of course, after he died and was replaced by Harry Truman, we know that they amended the Constitution. The Constitution was amended to limit the term to 2. So there cannot be any more than 2 terms at this time. We're almost done here. An uprising in China directed against foreign influence. You don't even need to know that, but Boxer Rebellion was the Chinese trying to get everybody out of there. It worked real well, as you already know. So we still have that, and sentiments expressed by the visual that you're going to see show the influence of which of the following? Don't all answer at once, folks. Ooh. One of the things I'm learning is that maybe we need to do more political cartoon work with you. But let's take a look at this idea of women conforming to gender expectations. So, thank you, Mrs. Consumer. What should that tell you? Eliana, you rock. I like how when I said Mrs. Consumer, Jessica says women, gender. Yes, but so Eliana, you said married women. Yes, Mrs. So if we're thinking about conforming to gender expectations, women are supposed to get married. And Daniel says implies women are buying things for the family. Bingo. So women, Mrs. Consumer at home, you are watching prices when you go shopping like women are supposed to do. Married women are supposed to do. You're buying only what you need. You're not buying more food. You're saving up for the war. and you can see war because it says war. And notice that we have somebody that looks kind of like FDR over here. And then we got soldiers, we got Navy sailors, we got Army people. I don't know what this is. Let's just say Marines or something. And then we got the farmer over here, and she's putting her family first in front of everything by only buying what she needs and making sure she does her shopping, and she's watching her prices and keep it up. So the only thing that I would see that might have led some of you to say women gaining financial independence in this particular image is the idea of investing in war savings. But keep in mind, if men are off fighting the war, Mrs. Consumer is the one at home who should probably be working and would be investing her money in war savings to try to help raise money for war bonds. So, cartoon is reminiscent of the new season of Archer. And Eliana says, I guess women wouldn't generally be saluted for being independent back then. You know what? That's a really interesting observation you made, Eliana, and I would probably agree with you. Although, at the same time, if you think about Rosie the Riveter, in the back of my classroom, you have the picture of We Can Do It. Rosie the Riveter working in the factories, making airplanes, with all the converted wartime factories. There is a sense of independence and an independent spirit amongst women who were left home to run the households and to earn money while the husbands or boyfriends or whomever went off to war. I think that it's interesting that seems to foster a really a dedicated sense of independence that's really going to carry its way. There's going to be an undercurrent through the 1950s, and then in the 1960s, you're going to see 60s and 70s, you're going to see women asserting themselves much more. But you're right. I don't think men would be crazy about the independent woman, no matter how independent she may have felt. Men probably would not have been very approving. Vanny, can you post the link for the Kahoot in the chat so he can go over the previous questions? Yeah. That is women to women, though. You're talking about man to woman, or the picture is. You're correct, Eliana. Nice observations on the gender here. So, here we go. Last question. An affair involving the leasing of naval oil reserves during the Harding administration. Teapot Dome, thank you very much, everybody. Power Dog, 21,000. You got 19 out of 24 questions correct. Brave Shark, you were right behind, 16 out of 24. And Creative Dragon, you were 14 out of 24. Rajat says snack bar. Cameron says second place, yeet. And David says yeah. So let's see here. These are our final top five, or only five. And you know what? I better get some nice smiles on this one, dudes, because otherwise, feels bad, man. And, you know, I did a lot of searching to copy this particular Kahoot, and it took a lot to try to figure out which one to share with you guys. And I actually really like this one because you had to think about this a little bit. I want feels good, man, and I want yes, thumbs up on learning, and I want yes, recommended, or I might not be in a good mood tomorrow when I have to finalize your test in the morning. Uh-oh. 3 people? Oh, I'm not in a good mood. Okay, let's go. More of you. I want more of you on here. I'm not happy. Very, very, very unhappy. So, here's what we're going to do. We're going to exit the Kahoot, but I'm going to give a link for those of you who would like to have this in the chat. And I'm also going to send it on Remind. And I'm going to bring it back to me for just a minute. So let's have a classroom fireside chat, shall we? It's time to discuss. It's time to discuss all you guys freaking out about your writing. Now, if you look at your agenda for today, you might see, or tomorrow, my bad, you might see that I altered something since you guys all had started to freak out a little bit. If you look here, I put contextualization and or thesis statements as your written portion of your exam. So first up, want to make sure that you understand that you're not writing a full-length LEQ. Tell all your friends to stop freaking out. We're not there. Now, we're going to do that a lot when you come back because it's kind of how I structure the way I move up into your writing practice, and then I'll have lots of feedback for you when we come back from the break, and you'll be good to go on that. Now, if I provided you with a document, I might ask you to determine the historical context of that because we practice that with looking at some of our things. And I may ask you to provide at least what would look like the beginnings of an essay for 1 or 2 essay prompts. So that would be no more than about 15 minutes of writing. And that would mean I'd probably give you a reduced number of multiple choice questions. I haven't quite completely decided on that just yet. Now, I will tell you, as you all wait with bated breath, I will tell you that right now on the agenda, I'm writing some hints. So for example, if you're looking, I'll put this live for you to watch. Ready? Okay. Okay. Here are some hints for you. Evaluation of success of progressives or success of New Deal programs, or we will say comparison type prompts of perhaps, ready, World War I versus World War II, or a change in continuity over time, perhaps, of perhaps say, U.S. foreign policy. And whoops, let's spell that right. Period 7. Or, sorry, economic policies of the U.S. government. I'll give you one more. Sorry, there's another comparison. (1920s) tension. Okay? One of these 6 topics will be presented to you. Not exactly as you see here, but the topics in those frames, either an evaluation of, so remember evaluation, judgment of one of those things, or comparison of either one of those in those particular topics, or I'm going to change this. I just realized. But I did this a little wrong. Causation. Move this up here. And let's say causation, we may go back to failure of treaty, failure to ratify Treaty of Versailles, and a comparison perhaps of things in World War I with things in World War II. And perhaps U.S. involvement in World War I. So now I haven't been looking at your chat for a second. So if you look here, let's see. Spicy hint time. Sorry, Vanny, but the link doesn't work. Could you post it again? Everyone says we are writing 2 LEQs as the test. I have no idea where you're getting that from. And it's the time we've all been waiting for, Millen says. So Henry Cabot Lodge, the Senate will decide the League of Nations fate. Wilson, I am the Senate. Article 10. Well, look at all of you guys trying to figure all this out. And everyone was like me, no gusta. Nice. Okay, so now couple of things. Remember, all of you people out there in watching land, scream it out loud and high above the trees to your friends that this is what you would be doing. I'm even going to add this on here. No, you're not doing 2 LEQs. No, you're not doing 2 DBQs. No, you're not writing 700,000 essays. No, I'm not giving you short answer questions. Okay. Brothers, sisters, read what it says. It's going to be like, will be like your bell works. So, don't worry. Don't freak out. Not worth it. Not going to help you anyway. It's going to be just fine. If you are way familiar with things like the videos on the study page for period 7 that I sent out on the remind earlier today, if you're familiar with things like the outlines, key terms and concepts, you will do just fine. You're going to be asked to make decisions with things that we have studied. In no way whatsoever are you going to have to try to do an entire full essay. One, the majority of this, the reason for this is I won't really have a lot of time to grade it. The other reason for this is that I didn't want to take 2 days away from our instruction to be able to write full essays. And so I made an executive decision here. So, Vanny, we heard we're going to have to write a 30-page research paper tomorrow. Is this true? Yes, and in 90 minutes. And you're going to have to do the research in your head with no computer or any other media resources available to you. So good luck on that. Now, I was asked if we could do some Albert and stuff. Now, I don't know if you realize, but I'm still in my classroom and it is 10:23 p.m. And as much as I love you all and as much as I care about your success, and I think that this should be evident that at 10:23 p.m. I'm on a live stream with you in my classroom and I haven't gone home today. I'm afraid to say that I won't be doing Albert. But if you want to thank me for anything I've done for you today or this entire semester, here are my suggestions. Second period, you have canned food drive. Tomorrow is the final day. We cannot let the enemy win. Uncle Sam, Uncle Mark needs you to help beat the classes that are trying to outdo us. And this is all to help the less fortunate at a magical time of year when Southern California gets cold and some of us celebrate religiously inspired holidays, whether or not we actually bring religion into it. Just think that we all got these little, some of us got some of these little snowball gram things today, and they were magical and they embody the spirit of snowflakes. And that's why you're going to bring food to the food drive. If your second period hasn't been participating in the food drive and you want to bring food to help the less fortunate and those in need, I am happy to accept your food on behalf of my second period. And if I get anywhere near a goal or the top 3, let's put it this way, if my classes get anywhere near the top 3, then everybody will have something fun. My second period, yes, I have promised them pizza if they meet their class goal of 540 cans. So some of them may forego eating their pizza if you're in one of the other classes and you decide to bring cans. But I can't give you extra credit, not doing it, but do it for the goodness of other people. So this is my appeal to you. If you were grateful for anything that we did this evening, or you're grateful for anything else, bring cans and show your gratefulness to people who need food at a time of year when it's a little more crucial. There are a lot of people out there that are less fortunate than we are. And so if you want to bring contributions, you can. The second period, remember, you have pizza from me writing on it. And if you make it into the top 3, you get your choice of those things that the ASB is offering. But more importantly, while we love Ms. Yates and we love Ms. Lawless, we don't want them to win, right? So heed the call. Now, I'm going to look at the chat and see if there's any extra little questions. Vanny, you switched lights on your Christmas stuff. Now they're colored. They've always been colored. Don't let the Huns win. Right, Drew, don't. Second period is going to make America great again. Yes, Millen. Second period is going to do that. Our president would be proud. CCA is freezing, William says. Yes, he was all blanketed up today. We need a miracle of getting 540 cans. Yes. Someone's going to show up tomorrow with 500 cans, I bet. Well, I hope so, David. Maybe that would be you. Someone come in clutch. Okay, I don't know what that means. How much about Taft should we know? Jessica, William Howard Taft, understand him in the sense of imperialism, dollar diplomacy, and anything that might be considered progressive. And see what I thought. They were red and green at first, and now they're all different colors. Taft was obese. Yes, that's it. Well, yeah, but see, they're flashing. So here, I can make them not flash. Let's see. Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about, David, because when I had them like this a little earlier, I think all you saw was maybe red and green. So that makes sense why you thought that. Never mind. Anyway, we can make them go psychedelic. We can make them a little less psychedelic. We can make them kind of chase. And we can make them just blink or just stay on. Now, one other thing tomorrow. Remember, tomorrow is ugly winter sweater day. So if you have an ugly winter sweater, show your ugly winter sweater spirit and wear that in honor of your test or many tests, as the case may be. Anything else I'm seeing here? I will write a full LEQ on Taft's bathtub. How many questions about his bathtub will there be? The entire test is going to be about the bathtub of William Howard Taft. And every stimulus is going to be a picture of him in his bathtub. How's that? All right. That being said, my friends, it is time to go because it is now 10:29. You got your spicy hints. I'm sure that feels good, man. And I'm sure that you're going to go for the dubs tomorrow. Remember, I will not say the full letter because that's, if you can't type yeah, I'm not going to say the full letter. And remember that you have a couple of online options available to you. Do not forget the Maine. Don't forget the Battleship Maine. Also, don't forget things like sorry, not about me. We don't care about me. What we want to look at is helpful study links. Remember, at this time of night, you should only be at the very most at this point. Maybe you're looking at outlines. Remember things like New Nationalism or New Freedom or Bull Moose Party and all that stuff. All these little bolded terms, underlined terms. All those little things that have to do quite a bit with, say, unit guides that have, I don't know, terms. The unit guides that have been here all along. Remember, if your friends are concerned about, will these be bolded in any way? No, because you didn't take a quiz on 34 or 35. And remember, bolded terms are only to help you with your quizzes, just to help you being able to target a little bit for a quiz. But remember, you should know something like the quarantine speech, or maybe reciprocity, or maybe, and if you don't know who the Nazi Party is, or if you don't know who Adolf Hitler is, or Mussolini. I don't know what to do for you. I'm sad. And don't forget that this is here. Don't forget that you have the Period 7 guide. The Period 7 guide has all these videos. And if you weren't here at the very beginning, remember, at the very least, you should at least watch these key concept videos. You may want to watch Mr. Yost here. Mr. Yost has a 20-minute video that hits on each of the key concepts. And if you are not too swift on certain ideas or particular concepts, if you're just a little unsure, I've put all kinds of videos here for Great Depression and New Deal. These are nice reviews using the crash course. Women's suffrage is a really good one for change over time. American neutrality is a good thing to make sure you watch. And these three on World War II aren't so bad, given that we had to do that fast. Don't forget that you have some hints here. And I think that just about hits everything. I'm not seeing many questions from you. So I don't think that there's anything else to add other than to say, I never take L's, only doves. That's awesome, Millen. Lucy Kylo Ren, you are more than welcome. Kevin, you are very, very welcome, my friend. William says this is the spiciest meme land. No all-nighters. And I'm sorry you have an AP Bio test as well. But, you know, I don't know. You just have to decide which subject you love more. And I don't know. Did your AP Bio teacher do an online study session tonight? Anyway, you're going to do fine. Don't stay up all night because that's terrible and it won't help you. You've got 1 day left and then you get a 2-week break. And we're all looking forward to that. So that being said, I am about to sign off, my friends. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Don't stay up too late. Remember, it's not good for you and it won't help you anyway. If you don't know it now, you're not going to know it all by tomorrow. And hopefully you know enough to get by. So that being said, good night, my faithful APUSH children, and sweet dreams of imperialism and world wars.